Across our planet, there are mysteries that remain unsolved, artifacts that defy the technology of their time, civilizations that vanished without a trace, and phenomena that leave modern science baffled. Could it be that part of human history has been forgotten or deliberately hidden? What you're about to see may forever change the way you see our past. A jet of fire erupts into the night, not extinguished by water, but ignited even more fiercely. It clings to sails, seeps into wooden hulls, burns through layers of flesh, and spreads across the sea itself. Those who leap into the water to escape only end up setting themselves ablaze in the ocean. No one knows what it was made of. No one knows how to put it out. And most terrifying of all, we still can't recreate it to this day. This is Greek fire, a mysterious weapon completely lost to history that terrified the world for centuries, a masterpiece of genius, or an ancient curse that mankind has forgotten. If humanity could recreate Greek fire today, do you think it would lead to scientific advancement or open a new gateway to war and destruction? Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you choose to revive ancient knowledge or believe that some secrets are better left buried forever? Greek fire, also known as the fire of the Greeks, was a highly flammable liquid weapon used in warfare by the Byzantine Empire starting in the 7th century. But what made this weapon truly extraordinary wasn't just its destructive power, but rather the mystery surrounding its origin. The exact formula has been completely lost to human history. Even today, despite the vast progress of modern science, we still cannot fully recreate Greek fire, turning it into a symbol of forgotten knowledge. The formula for Greek fire was never publicly recorded, and this is precisely what made it legendary. The Byzantines treated it as a national treasure, passing it down orally within a very small circle of military engineers known as chirotechnai, those who work by hand. This secrecy allowed Greek fire to remain a powerful strategic weapon for centuries, but it also meant that the entire body of knowledge was buried forever when Constantinople fell in 1453. No formula, no records, not a single witness left. Greek fire vanished, leaving the modern world with one of the greatest unanswered mysteries in the history of ancient warfare. Among all the legends surrounding Greek fire, what makes it utterly mysterious is the fact that its entire formula has been completely lost to history. No ancient text recorded the production process. No documents preserved its chemical components. No blueprints or technical descriptions have ever been found in historical archives. All that remains are vague accounts, indirect references, and the lingering fear passed down by those who once faced it. Even renowned medieval historians like Anna Komnene only left behind brief and unclear descriptions. The fire burned fiercely and could not be extinguished by water, and it was stored in small containers or shot from metal tubes like the mouth of a dragon. But that's all. No one truly knows what it was made of, how it was ignited, or why it could burn even on water, a behavior that defies all normal physical laws. Today, modern researchers have proposed various theories. Some believe Greek fire may have included substances such as crude oil or naphtha quicklime, which reacts violently with water, pine resin, sulfur, or other highly flammable compounds. However, despite numerous efforts to reconstruct it in modern laboratories, no one has yet been able to recreate Greek fire in a way that is precise, safe, and retains its most bizarre characteristics, especially its ability to burn more fiercely when in contact with water, or to spread like liquid flame across the sea's surface. The loss of its formula has turned Greek fire into a symbol of buried knowledge, a sobering reminder that humanity once possessed scientific secrets far beyond our current understanding, but through time, war, and the fall of civilizations, we have lost them forever. The terror caused by Greek fire stemmed not only from its physical destruction, but also from the overwhelming psychological impact it inflicted on enemies. For opposing armies, from the Arabs to the Vikings, witnessing a fire raging violently on the surface of water was a complete shock that shattered basic survival instincts. Water, after all, is supposed to extinguish flames, not feed them. And yet Greek fire did the opposite. When water was poured on it, the fire surged higher, spread faster, as if it were being fueled by the sea itself. It's not hard to imagine the horror felt by soldiers aboard ships, watching their comrades engulfed in strange green flames, only to realize that jumping into the sea offered no escape from burning to death. With just a few flamethrowers and barrels of Greek fire, the Byzantine navy could completely turn the tide of battle, even when outnumbered or outgunned. In an age when most warfare relied on hand-to-hand combat and swordplay, Greek fire was a weapon that instilled fear beyond the boundaries of conventional war. Greek fire was not just a flammable liquid, it was accompanied by a flame projection system far ahead of its time. The Byzantines invented a device called a siphon, a long metal tube mounted on ships, functioning similarly to a modern flamethrower. Once activated, Greek fire would shoot out as a stream of blazing liquid, capable of sticking to virtually any surface, from wood and cloth to iron armor or human skin. Ancient records describe these siphons being mounted at the bows of warships, allowing warriors to breathe fire like dragons, a sight both awe-inspiring and terrifying to enemy fleets. There were also portable versions, small jars filled with Greek fire that could be thrown by hand like incendiary bombs, enabling infantry soldiers to use them in close combat. This fusion of a unique chemical formula and advanced delivery technology made Greek fire a fully integrated weapon, powerful in both chemistry and battlefield engineering. When Constantinople fell to the Ottomans in 1453, all knowledge of Greek fire vanished forever. No secret manuscripts were ever found, no final engineer survived to pass on the formula, and not a single official record was preserved. It was as if this terrifying weapon had been buried along with the very city it once defended. From that moment on, Greek fire was no longer just a weapon. It became a legend. It left behind a trail of unanswered questions. What was it truly made of? How could it burn on water? And why, after more than 1,000 years, are we still completely powerless to recreate what once terrified the world? Greek fire is more than a historical weapon. It stands as a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be when swallowed by the tides of history. In an age where humanity can build nuclear bombs, engineer chemical weapons, and manipulate genetics, something as seemingly simple as Greek fire remains an unsolved mystery. This makes it a powerful symbol of humility. No matter how advanced we become, there are still shadows in history untouched by modern science. Greek fire reminds us that ancient civilizations once possessed technologies beyond imagination. And sometimes, due to war, politics, or time itself, those secrets vanish forever. What do you think about Greek fire? If the formula were rediscovered today, could it reshape modern warfare? Or are there even darker ancient secrets still waiting to be uncovered? Let us know in the comments. Not a weapon, not jewelry, not a ritual object, and most strangely of all, no one knows what they are. From the depths of European soil, Archaeologists have unearthed dozens of mysterious 12-sided metal objects, each with near-perfect symmetrical geometry. Every face has a circular hole, and each corner features small protruding knobs, as if part of some mechanical device, but one that no one has ever seen before. They bear no markings of ancient Rome, no inscriptions, no symbols, no written context. Yet they persist, scattered across Western Europe like isolated fragments of a long-lost knowledge system. Centuries have passed, but the questions remain. Who created these objects? What were they used for? And why did they vanish without a trace? Roman dodecahedrons are not just a mystery. They are a challenge to history itself and to the limits of human imagination. What do you think these mysterious 12-sided metal objects were used for? A precise measuring device? A long-lost ritual tool? Or something far beyond our current understanding? Share your theory in the comments. Who knows, you might be the one to unlock the secret behind this ancient enigma. When observing a Roman dodecahedron, one cannot help but be struck by its perfect symmetrical geometry and incredibly precise craftsmanship, something rare even with today's advanced technology. Each piece is a regular 12-sided solid, what geometry calls a dodecahedron, with 12 pentagonal faces, each carefully drilled with a circular hole. The sizes of these holes vary from face to face. At the vertices where the faces meet, there are small spherical knobs, spaced evenly like mysterious connectors. Despite their compact size, usually just 4 to 10 centimeters in diameter, every dodecahedron resembles a miniature supernatural mechanical device. The circular holes are meticulously drilled with perfect roundness. What's more, no two dodecahedrons are exactly the same. Each one is a unique creation, with different hole diameters and varied distances between vertices. It seems that each piece was handcrafted for a specific purpose, not produced from a standard mold. The materials used are mostly bronze, copper alloys, and occasionally tin, metals commonly used by the Romans, but not for trivial items like toys or decorations. Casting a perfectly symmetrical 12-sided object in bronze and then drilling 12 precisely aligned holes without deforming the structure requires advanced metallurgical and machining skills, uncommon for everyday household items. If these were meant to be decorative pieces, they are far too complex. If they were tools, there are no signs of wear. And if they were ritual objects, why such mathematical and mechanical precision? It's this paradox between technical design and completely unknown purpose that sets the Roman dodecahedrons apart from anything else ever found. Why do you think ancient people created such a perfectly geometric design, yet left behind no instructions or explanations? Could it be a remnant of lost knowledge, a tool with a purpose beyond its time, or simply a mystery that was never meant to be fully revealed? Share your thoughts below. What impresses you most about this strange and intricate design? The Roman world is famous for being a literate and highly organized civilization. From stone-carved law codes to detailed manuals on farming, medicine, and warfare, nearly every aspect of life was recorded. And yet not a single ancient text mentions the dodecahedrons. No usage instructions, no ceremonial references, no production notes, no stories. They appear as if they fell from another dimension, with no explanation and no historical context. This only deepens the mystery. Were they so secret that they weren't allowed to be documented? Or perhaps they simply didn't belong to mainstream Roman symbolism at all. Some scholars believe that since most of these artifacts were found in provinces far from the empire's center, such as Gallia, France, Germania, Germany, and Britain, they may have been ritual or symbolic objects used by local communities, tolerated but not controlled by Rome. Although they are called Roman dodecahedrons, curiously, not a single one has ever been found in the core of the Roman Empire, such as Rome itself or other major southern cities. Instead, all have been discovered in Western and Northern Europe, in peripheral regions like modern-day England, France, and Germany. This raises a significant question. Could their true origin lie not with the Romans, but with local cultures living under Roman influence? And if so, why did such an intricate and sophisticated design appear only briefly in history, then vanish without a trace? There is no evidence of mass production, no remnants of workshops, and no written records mentioning them. Nor is there any indication that they were banned or destroyed. These dodecahedrons simply appeared and then disappeared like fleeting phantoms in the stream of time, leaving behind centuries of doubt and speculation. When faced with an unclassifiable artifact, the first reaction from scholars and the public alike is to propose theories. And with Roman dodecahedrons, the number of proposed explanations is so vast it could fill an entire book. One of the most common theories suggests they were seasonal measuring instruments used to determine the optimal time for planting crops by measuring sunlight angles through the differently sized holes, like a miniature sundial. Others believe they were military tools designed to estimate projectile distance for archers or spearmen, based on target size viewed through the holes. Some argue they might be early astronomical instruments, perhaps a type of unrecognized astrolabe. Another group believes they served as ritual or divination objects used in agricultural ceremonies, astrology, or indigenous belief systems. Some go even further, suggesting they were magical relics or ancient communication devices, possibly tied to technology from a lost or even extraterrestrial civilization. A more modern and widely shared theory claims they were knitting gauges used to determine finger or glove sizes via the various hole diameters. However, this explanation fails to answer the most crucial question. Why would such a geometrically complex, symmetrical, and precisely engineered object be necessary for such a simple task? All theories face major challenges. Either they don't account for the mathematical design and exquisite craftsmanship, or they clash with archaeological evidence, such as the materials used, the limited number of discoveries, the non-repetitive variation between samples, and their scattered discovery locations. The deeper one analyzes, the clearer it becomes that these dodecahedrons were likely crafted for a very specific, highly sophisticated purpose, one that has completely slipped through the cracks of recorded history and human understanding. The Roman dodecahedrons resemble an unsolvable equation in archaeology, artifacts that refuse to identify themselves. Every time a theory seems close to cracking the code, another unexplained detail emerges and unravels it all. It is this persistent mystery that makes them a vivid reminder of the limits of modern knowledge. Not everything from the ancient world offers easy answers. They remind us that history is not linear or complete, and the past often hides more than it reveals. Sometimes, the silence in the records speaks louder than any written word. And Roman dodecahedrons, with their flawless symmetry, their absence of context, and their ability to baffle archaeologists for centuries, may be one of the greatest unsolved enigmas of antiquity. It wasn't buried in a tomb of gold. It wasn't carved in stone or hidden beneath desert sands. Instead, one of the most mysterious texts of the ancient world was found wrapped around a dead woman's body. Words written in ink on linen, sealed not in a library, but in a coffin. To most, she looked like just another mummy. But when scholars unwrapped her bandages, they didn't just uncover flesh and bone. They uncovered a book, a full-length manuscript from a civilization long gone. But here's the twist. It's written in a language that no one can fully understand. This is the Liber Linteus, the only known book in the world made of cloth, written in the lost tongue of the Etruscans. And we still don't know what it says. If you found an ancient book no one could read, wrapped around a mummy, what would you believe it says? Scroll down and tell us your theory. Liber Linteus is the longest surviving text written in the Etruscan language, a language spoken in central Italy long before Latin became dominant. The Etruscans flourished between the 8th and 3rd centuries BCE, building city-states, temples, art, and religious systems that laid the groundwork for much of Roman culture. And yet, their language remains largely undeciphered, a ghost echoing in stone, pottery, and the linen of a forgotten mummy. Etruscan is a non-Indo-European language, meaning it does not belong to the language family that includes Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, or English. It stands alone, like Basque or Sumerian, unrelated to its neighbors. It used an alphabet similar to early Greek, and we can read the letters, but not the meanings. That's the crux of the mystery. We can pronounce the words in Liber Linteus. We can recognize repeated patterns, proper names, even dates. But the meaning behind most of the words is unknown. The grammar, syntax, and vocabulary are only partially understood, leaving entire passages that feel like cryptic poems whispered by a dead civilization. It's like having a full Bible in a lost language, with no Rosetta Stone. Imagine a book about ancient rituals, gods, laws, or even prophecies wrapped around a corpse, written in a language that hasn't been spoken in over 2,000 years. Scholars believe the Liber Linteus might be a religious calendar, listing offerings, feasts, or ceremonies to Etruscan deities. But that's just an educated guess. No one can say for sure. And that uncertainty fuels fascination. What if it's something more? What do you think about this? If one day we fully decode the Etruscan language, what do you think will be the first thing it reveals? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. The discovery of Liber Linteus, one of the most unusual texts of the ancient world, was, in fact, a bizarre stroke of chance. In the mid-19th century, during a time when the collecting of antiquities was sweeping across Europe, an Austrian official visiting Alexandria, Egypt, purchased a mummy as a fashionable souvenir. He had no idea that he was bringing back not just a mummified body, but an ancient book forgotten for millennia. The body was later transported to Vienna and eventually to the city of Zagreb, where it was kept in storage for many years. At first, the linen wrappings were thought to be merely decorative, but scholars soon noticed strange markings running along the surface of the cloth. What seemed at first to be ornamentation turned out to be a complete ancient manuscript, written not on stone, papyrus, or pottery, but on linen, a material extremely rare in the history of ancient texts. Even more astonishing was the fact that the writing was neither Egyptian hieroglyphs nor Greek, Latin, or Hebrew. It was written in Etruscan, an ancient language that had become extinct over 2,000 years ago and had never before been discovered in such a lengthy, continuous format. Prior to this, known Etruscan inscriptions were short, often limited to funerary epitaphs or ritual markings, a few isolated words rarely forming a complete sentence. But Liber Linteus contained over 230 lines of text, arranged in 12 vertical columns with nearly 1,200 words, an unprecedented volume for this language. linguists immediately threw themselves into studying the artifact, tracing each character, comparing it with known fragments, examining etymologies, and trying to reconstruct its grammar. Yet, despite decades of work, most of the content remains shrouded in darkness. Scholars have only managed to identify a handful of words like offering, god, day, month, and some place names. The rest remains an undeciphered linguistic mass, as if it were written solely for readers who vanished along with the civilization that created it. Precisely at the intersection between legend and mystery, Liber Linteus has led many independent scholars, spiritual researchers, and speculative writers to draw comparisons with lost texts such as the Book of Enoch. Both are ancient writings that were buried by time, only to be rediscovered centuries later under extraordinary circumstances. The Book of Enoch, a text excluded from the Bible by many religious authorities, describes visions of heaven, fallen angels, and forbidden knowledge once granted to humankind. It was written in Ge'ez, an ancient language that has nearly vanished and preserved in remote monasteries across generations. This aura of obscurity makes it no less enigmatic than Liber Linteus. The parallels between these two texts are striking. Both are written in nearly lost languages, preserved through extraordinary means, linked to ritual or cosmic knowledge, and only partially revealed to the modern world. Could Liber Linteus be merely a ceremonial calendar, or is it a manuscript containing ancient ritual instructions, astrological wisdom, or even prophecies long buried by time? Perhaps it is the Enoch of the Etruscans, a text written to carry sacred knowledge beyond death, into the afterlife. And quite possibly, we may never know the truth. Today, the Liber Linteus, along with the mummy it once wrapped, is displayed at the Archaeological Museum of Zagreb. Two entities, a linen book and an unnamed woman, are now inseparable. No one truly knows who she was, where she came from, or why this manuscript was wrapped around her body. Yet through some strange twist of fate, whether accidental or destined, she has become the guardian of an extinct language. It is as if she was buried not only in death, but also within a language no longer spoken, within a civilization whose voice has faded into silence. Every strand of linen, every faded line of ink, whispers fragmented memories of a world not erased by fire or sword, but by time and forgetting. There is no copy, no translation, no explanation. The Liber Linteus still stands, a monologue from the shadows of history, waiting for someone someday to listen and finally understand what it longs to say. In the world of ancient texts, the Liber Linteus stands as a singular enigma, a hybrid artifact, part religious scroll, part funerary wrapping, part linguistic puzzle. It defies categorization. It challenges our assumptions about language, memory, and what it means to preserve knowledge. But above all, it reminds us of something deeply human, that every civilization, no matter how advanced or powerful, eventually becomes a whisper in the dark. And sometimes that whisper survives, not in stone, but in linen. Written across the wrappings of the dead, Liber Linteus is a book without a reader, a song without a melody, a question that has not yet found its answer. And perhaps that's exactly what it was meant to be. On a misty morning in early winter, 1970, in the thick fog blanketing Death Valley near Bergen, Norway, a father and his two daughters paused deep in the silent forest after sensing a strange smell. They had no idea that just a few steps ahead, one of the most haunting and mysterious scenes in modern history awaited them. The charred body of a woman, lying among moss-covered rocks, her hands neatly placed on her chest, as if someone had just performed a silent ritual. There were no signs of struggle, no name, no identity. No one knew who she was or where she came from. But in her suitcase were items stripped of labels, fake passports, wigs, strange symbols, and traces of a secret life. The deeper the police dug, the further they sank into a maze of unanswered questions, from the erasure of her identity to movements resembling those of an international spy. That body was not just a woman who died in the woods. It was a doorway into a chilling, complex story buried between the two poles of the Cold War. A death with no witnesses, a life with no record, and a secret that, to this day, the world still cannot unravel. So what do you think? Was this a covered-up murder, a failed espionage mission, or a warning from the past? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe the truth will one day be revealed, or are some mysteries meant to remain forever buried? At first glance, the death of the Isdal woman seemed like a tragic accident in a cold, desolate forest. But as police and forensic experts carefully examined the scene and conducted an autopsy, layers of unsettling irregularities began to emerge, so bizarre they felt deliberately orchestrated. The scene itself offered the first clues: no signs of a campfire, no shelter, no place where she might have stayed. Yet her body was severely burned to the point of deformation. Even stranger, the nearby grass and soil were barely singed, as if the fire had consumed only the woman. A flame without fuel, without origin. The woman's body was so charred that identification was nearly impossible, but her hands were not as badly burned as the rest, and most notably, they were neatly crossed over her chest, arranged with eerie precision. Experts emphasized that under such extreme heat, this peaceful pose could not have been natural. It led to a chilling theory that someone had returned to the scene to position her body, or that she was deliberately placed that way as part of a silent, coded message. Near the corpse lay partially burned objects: a bottle of liquor, empty blister packs of sleeping pills, a suitcase, all stripped of any identifying labels. Her clothes bore no tags. Her toothbrush and comb were blank. Some metal items, such as a spoon, were traced to Eastern European manufacturers, deepening suspicions of a Cold War spy connection. A large amount of sleeping pills was found in her stomach, initially suggesting suicide, but the autopsy revealed something even more disturbing. She died of smoke inhalation, meaning she was still alive when the fire started. No blood, no wounds, no struggle. Everything was chillingly clean, as if an invisible hand had wiped away her past, leaving behind only one message: do not dig further. These details could not have been coincidence. Together, they form a grim portrait that this woman did not die naturally, and not in the way someone wanted us to believe. This was not simply a death. It was a story written in fire, sealed with absolute silence. Police found no form of identification on the mysterious woman. But when they traced a suitcase she had left at the Bergen train station, they uncovered something even stranger: 2 suitcases filled with personal items that were completely devoid of personal traces. Inside were designer underwear, expensive sunglasses, several jars of cream with the labels scraped off, torn hotel receipts, ripped train tickets, and a notebook filled with strange symbols that belonged to no known language. Every item appeared to be carefully selected to ensure her true identity could never be traced. Her reconstructed facial image was later broadcast widely across Europe, but no one recognized her. No missing persons matched her description. No embassy reported a citizen lost. In an era before DNA analysis, she became a nameless ghost, drifting between two worlds, truth and oblivion. Based on collected records, investigators determined that the woman had traveled through at least 8 different cities in the weeks before her death, including Oslo, Stavanger, and notably areas near military bases where NATO had conducted missile tests. At each hotel she stayed in, a repeating behavioral pattern emerged. She used a different identity, checking in with false names and mismatched passports, and spoke fluent French, German, and English, sometimes deliberately altering her accent or using incorrect grammar, as if trying to obscure her true nationality. She never allowed anyone to touch her luggage, frequently changed rooms without explanation, and was once reported to have left the hotel and returned later looking entirely different, wearing a wig and different clothes. Her calculated movements, heightened vigilance, and ability to disguise herself led many experts to believe that she wasn't just an ordinary traveler, but likely a spy operating within a Cold War espionage network. At the time, Norway held strategic importance, closely monitored by both the KGB and Western intelligence agencies. One theory suggests she was covertly observing radar or secret weapons tests, or worse, she had witnessed something that they simply couldn't allow to be exposed. If she truly was a spy, who do you think she worked for? NATO, the KGB, or some even more complex force behind the scenes? Or do you believe she was just an innocent victim, caught in a conspiracy no one has dared to speak of until now? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your theory might just be the missing key to a mystery that has lasted over half a century. For over half a century, the Isdal woman case has remained a dark veil that no one has been able to lift. Norwegian authorities have received hundreds of leads from around the world. Some claimed to have met her. Scientists offered to analyze her DNA from teeth and bones, and even former soldiers suggested they may have worked with her during a secret mission. However, not a single lead has been strong enough to crack the case. In 2017, an international team of experts conducted isotope analysis on her teeth and bones, suggesting that she may have grown up in the border region between France, Germany, and Belgium, and had a seafood-rich diet, characteristic of European coastal areas. But this remains only speculation. Her real name, origin, and purpose are still a complete mystery. Some theories propose that she was the victim of a top-secret biological weapons experiment, or perhaps a rogue agent who was eliminated for knowing too much, a death not caused by mistake, but the outcome of silence imposed by powers that never show their face. The story of the Isdal woman is not just an unsolved case. It is a mirror reflecting the paranoia of an era where any trace of mystery could be branded as espionage and human lives could be wiped clean, as if they had never existed. If any truth remains, it may lie buried with her body, or locked away in sealed archives of Mossad, the CIA, or the KGB. To this day, the nameless woman still rests in the Isdalen Valley, a silent symbol of questions the world may never answer. Long before the pyramids rose from the sands, before Stonehenge cast its first shadow, a colossal puzzle was etched into the soil of Brittany, France. Thousands of towering stones, some as tall as houses and weighing tens of tons, were dragged, lifted, and planted with eerie precision. They form lines that stretch farther than the eye can see, but lead nowhere. Circles that enclose nothing, patterns that defy logic. Who built them? With what tools? And most hauntingly of all, why? For over 6,000 years, the Karnak stones have stood in silence, their purpose lost, their meaning erased, and yet they refuse to be forgotten. This isn't just a riddle of stones. It's a challenge to everything we think we know about the ancient world. The Karnak stones are among the oldest and most mysterious archaeological enigmas in Europe. Believed to have been erected around 3300 BCE, even earlier than the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge, they continue to baffle researchers to this day. No one truly knows who built them, how they were erected, or what purpose they served. Numbering in the thousands, the stones vary in size, some just over a meter tall, while others rise more than 6 meters and weigh dozens of tons. What's truly astonishing is how they are aligned in near-perfect straight rows, stretching over 4 kilometers, especially in areas like Menek, Kamario, and Kaleskan. Others are arranged into circles or geometric clusters or placed alongside dolmens, horizontal stone tombs that suggest possible funerary use. Yet even these traces fail to clarify their true function, only deepening the mystery. Each clue opens up a new layer of questions, as if these stones were placed deliberately to challenge the minds of future generations across millennia. If you were standing in the middle of the Karnak stone fields, surrounded by thousands of ancient stones, aligned as if guided by an invisible hand, would you believe you're looking at a cosmic calendar, a sacred ceremonial site, or something entirely different? Which theory do you find most convincing, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Among all the unsolved mysteries of Karnak, the greatest puzzle lies in their purpose. What could have motivated Neolithic people, with no advanced tools, no wheels, and no beasts of burden, to transport and erect thousands of multi-ton stones, often sourced from kilometers away? And more importantly, what were they trying to achieve? Astronomical calendar. One of the most persistent theories is that the stones were aligned with celestial events, the solstices, equinoxes, or lunar phases. Similar theories have been applied to Stonehenge and other megalithic structures, suggesting ancient peoples may have used them as calendars to track the seasons for agricultural or ritual purposes. However, while some alignments in Karnak seem to correlate loosely with solar positions, the patterns are far more complex and widespread than would be necessary for simple sky tracking. The orientation of the lines also varies across the region, making it difficult to pinpoint a single astronomical function. If this were a calendar, it was one far beyond the scale or detail we would expect. Sacred pathways or pilgrimage routes. Another theory suggests the rows of stones may have marked ritual pathways, guiding lines for processions, spiritual journeys, or seasonal pilgrimages. The idea is compelling, especially given the rhythmic spacing of the stones and the fact that some lines converge or end near burial sites or ceremonial mounds. Could they have represented a symbolic passage between life and death? Or perhaps a journey mirroring the sun's path across the sky? And yet there's no definitive archaeological evidence to support this idea either. No inscriptions, no consistent burial practices, no artifacts that clearly tie the stones to ceremonial use. The paths may simply lead nowhere. Territorial markers or social display. Could the stones have been meant to impress, to demonstrate power, unity, or territory? In a world without cities or writing, the act of organizing labor to erect such massive structures would have been a staggering display of coordination and influence. Perhaps each community had its own section, its own line of stones, like a Neolithic signature etched in granite. Still, this doesn't explain the meticulous orientation of the stones, the deliberate patterns, or the fact that so many seem connected across wide distances. It also raises the question, if this was simply about territory, why invest so much effort in vertical placement and alignment, rather than building walls or embankments, energy grids, or earth forces. Some more fringe theories suggest that the stones were placed to harness or mark earth energies, invisible forces said to travel along ley lines, geomagnetic paths, or resonant frequencies. Proponents argue that the stones could have functioned like conductors or tuning forks, interacting with the Earth's magnetic field in ways we still do not understand. While mainstream science remains skeptical of such claims, the theory underscores an essential truth. We are still blind to how Neolithic people perceived their world. Their cosmology, their spirituality, their sense of what mattered, all are alien to us, and that gap of understanding leaves just enough room for mystery to linger. Despite over a century of study, including detailed mapping, excavation, aerial imaging, and even satellite surveys, no definitive answer has emerged. Why? No written records. Unlike later civilizations, the Neolithic people who built Karnak left behind no writing. We cannot read their thoughts, their intentions, or their myths. Lack of associated artifacts. Many megalithic sites across Europe are found with pottery, tools, or burial goods. At Karnak, the stones stand largely alone, offering no cultural context. Erosion and time. Thousands of years of erosion, farming, and modern development have disturbed the original layout. Some stones have been moved, others buried or destroyed. We may be missing key parts of the puzzle without knowing it. Perhaps the failure to identify a single function is itself a clue. Maybe the stones were multifunctional, or their meaning shifted over centuries. Just as our cathedrals today are places of worship, community, memory, and identity, perhaps the Karnak alignments were more than one thing at once. They may have served as a calendar, a ceremonial path, a tribal statement, and a spiritual monument, evolving as the culture did. What if the stones were a reflection of a worldview that didn't separate the sacred from the scientific or the practical from the symbolic? To stand among the Karnak stones is to feel the weight of time pressing silently from all directions. These are not crude constructions. They are deliberate, monumental, and persistent. And yet they say nothing. No inscriptions, no names, just silent, ancient order. Their alignment remains one of the great unsolved riddles of prehistory. In an age of satellites and space probes, we still can't explain what our distant ancestors were trying to do with thousands of giant rocks lined up with such eerie precision. Maybe that's the point. What do you think? Could the purpose of Karnak's stone alignments lie beyond our scientific understanding, buried in a worldview we've long since lost? Or are we simply missing a critical piece of evidence that could make it all make sense? Imagine walking into a museum in Colombia. In front of you lies a small golden artifact, less than 10 centimeters long, but shaped strikingly like a modern jet aircraft. A sleek, narrow body, sharp, horizontal wings, a vertical tail fin that looks like it was designed by an aerospace engineer. You glance at the plaque and learn this piece was crafted over 1,000 years ago by an ancient culture known as Quimbaya. So, how did ancient people, without industrial metals, without knowledge of aerodynamics, and with no concept of airplanes, create such a design? Was it just a random product of artistic imagination, a stylized bird? Or could it be evidence of something that lies far outside the bounds of conventional history? The Quimbaya airplanes, golden wings frozen in time, may hold the key to an entire chapter of history we've long forgotten. And if you think ancient artifacts can't fly, the 1994 experiment might just make you think again. What do you think? about the Quimbaya airplanes. Are they just abstract art, or a lost piece of a civilization that once understood, or even witnessed, flying technology? Share your theory in the comments below. When closely examining the so-called Quimbaya airplanes, researchers encounter features that leave even modern scientists puzzled. These artifacts possess a long, slender body that closely resembles the fuselage of a modern aircraft, complete with symmetrical horizontal wings and a clearly defined vertical tail fin. What's striking is the total absence of any biological characteristics typically seen in animals. No eyes, no fins, no beak, no features that clearly resemble a fish, bird, or insect. This lack of organic detail, combined with near-perfect symmetry and wing angles that align closely with aerodynamic principles, has led many experts to ask, are these truly just stylized pieces of art, or miniature replicas of a real design that the Quimbaya people might have actually witnessed? Considering the tools available in ancient times, creating such precise, symmetrical shapes with intentional geometric planning was no simple task. If these objects were merely symbolic or decorative, why do they so uncannily match the proportions, lines, and structure of modern aircraft? This uncanny similarity has fueled countless theories, ranging from optical coincidence to the replication of a technology far beyond the reach of their known civilization. One of the most pivotal moments in the Quimbaya airplane mystery occurred in 1994, when two German aeronautical engineers, Peter Belting and Algund Einboom, decided not to remain in the realm of theoretical debate, but instead conducted a real-world experiment. They selected one of these small golden artifacts, enlarged it several times using precise scaling, and constructed a model from modern materials. Most importantly, they did not add any extra components. No engines, no propellers, no modifications based on contemporary technology. Everything followed the original design of the 1,000-year-old artifact. Their goal was to test, could this shape, when scaled up and properly weighted, actually glide like an aircraft? The results were beyond expectations. When released into the air, the model glided smoothly, maintained balance, and showed no signs of spinning or crashing. According to technical analysis, its lift-to-drag ratio met recognized aerodynamic standards, meaning the shape was genuinely capable of flight. This discovery shook the aerospace community. In aircraft design, for a model to fly stably, its form must strictly adhere to aerodynamic principles, something that is almost impossible to achieve by accident or symbolic intuition alone. The question was no longer, does it look like a plane, but rather, how could an ancient civilization have created a shape that can actually fly? After the 1994 experiment demonstrated that the Quimbaya model could actually fly, a wave of theories emerged, ranging from plausible to highly speculative. Some suggest that the Quimbaya people may have witnessed a flying device with their own eyes, or even had contact with a form of technology that has since been entirely lost to history. This opens up the possibility of an ancient advanced civilization that understood aerodynamics long before the dawn of modern science. Others believe in the ancient aliens theory, that extraterrestrials once visited Earth, leaving behind images, knowledge, or even flying prototypes, which early humans later mimicked in their art. While it may sound far-fetched, the fact that the model can genuinely fly makes this theory harder to dismiss outright. On the other hand, more conservative voices argue that the objects are merely stylized representations of birds, fish, or insects, with no mystical significance. Yet this explanation quickly encounters a paradox. If they were just decorative or symbolic, then why do they actually fly? Could this be a subconscious echo of a forgotten design? Or perhaps a fragment of history we're simply not ready to face? What makes the Quimbaya mystery even harder to dismiss is not a single artifact, but the systematic repetition found across multiple items. Within the so-called Quimbaya treasure, archaeologists have uncovered over 30 artifacts with similar shapes, all following a remarkably consistent design language: a streamlined, elongated body, clearly defined horizontal wings, a vertical tail fin, and most notably, no biological features whatsoever, such as fins, feathers, or insect-like eyes. If these are meant to represent stylized animals, the stylization has gone so far that they've become nearly mechanical in form. Some of the artifacts even resemble modern jet aircraft, with a clearly split tail section resembling vertical and horizontal stabilizers found on fighter jets. This level of structural similarity is extremely difficult to explain if we rely solely on the idea of ancient folk art or symbolism. The consistency across all these pieces doesn't suggest artistic improvisation. It points to intentional repetition of a design the Quimbaya people were either familiar with or held in high significance. In archaeology, when a form is repeated multiple times with such precision, it usually means it wasn't just abstract decoration. It likely represented something specific: religious, practical, or perhaps a preserved memory of something that once truly existed. There are no ancient manuscripts, no technical blueprints, and certainly no traces of airstrips, engines, or any structures related to ancient aviation. Yet the Quimbaya airplanes still quietly exist, resting behind glass at the Gold Museum in Bogotá, as a silent challenge to conventional history. Perhaps they are nothing more than stylized jewelry, born from artistic imagination. But we also can't entirely rule out the possibility that the Quimbaya people possessed a rudimentary understanding of aerodynamics, something we've long believed only emerged with modern science. And now, with experiments proving that these models can actually fly, the past can no longer be reduced to simple assumptions. Perhaps what humanity is missing isn't just an answer, but an entire chapter of history that has been erased over time. Imagine a brilliant civilization that flourished over 3,500 years ago, building grand palaces, dominating sea trade routes, and leaving behind a unique writing system. And yet, everything they ever said or wrote remains a wall of silence to this day. On the island of Crete, among the ruins of the Minoan civilization, archaeologists uncovered hundreds of clay tablets etched with flowing symbols. Linear A. They appear like fragments of a magnificent story, but no one can read them. Strangely enough, the successor to Linear A, Linear B, was successfully deciphered in 1952, unlocking the ancient Greek language. But with Linear A, every method, every effort has failed. It has become an unsolved riddle, standing firm in the heart of history, challenging every modern linguist. This is not just an unread script. It is a locked door to a once glorious civilization, now echoing faintly through the stones of time. If you were a linguist, where would you begin deciphering Linear A? Do you think there could be a vast body of knowledge hidden within those silent symbols? The Minoans, the creators of the Linear A script, were one of the earliest and most enigmatic civilizations in ancient Europe. From around 1800 to 1450 BCE, they flourished on the island of Crete, building grand palaces like Knossos, equipped with ventilation systems, stone columns, and food storage rooms, evidence of a highly organized society. Their art was vibrant and lively, often depicting the sea, nature, and religious rituals reflecting a life deeply connected to the ocean. Strangely, the Minoans appear to have built no defensive walls and left behind no signs of large-scale warfare, suggesting a remarkably peaceful society for the ancient world. And yet, this very civilization vanished abruptly, leaving behind no decipherable records, making the silence of Linear A all the more haunting and mysterious. Unlike other civilizations that left behind epic poems, legal codes, or religious writings, the Minoans only left behind brief clay tablets, mostly recording goods, numbers, and personal names. There is no long text substantial enough to reveal their beliefs, spiritual life, or inner thoughts. That's why Linear A is more than just an ancient script. It represents an interrupted legacy of knowledge, where everything once written has become meaningless to the modern world. It stands as a major puzzle in archaeology and a poignant reminder of what humanity has lost in the face of a locked treasure trove of history. The name Linear comes from the script's format. Its signs are arranged in horizontal rows from left to right, completely different from the complex pictographic structure of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Linear A consists of around 70 syllabic signs, along with additional symbols used for recording quantities and units, reflecting a sophisticated administrative record-keeping system. These features closely resemble those of Linear B, a later script adopted by the Mycenaeans, who inherited many elements from Minoan civilization. However, the fate of these two scripts is starkly different. Linear B was successfully deciphered in 1952 by Michael Ventris, as it recorded an early form of Greek, a language scholars could recognize and verify. Thanks to this, once indecipherable texts could now be read and understood, bringing lost history back to light. But that did not happen with Linear A. Despite its visual similarity, the language encoded within it remains a wall of silence. Following the breakthrough in deciphering Linear B, many scholars hoped that the same method could be applied to crack the code of Linear A. However, every effort ended in failure. Although more than half of Linear A's signs resemble those of Linear B, assigning Linear B's phonetic values to Linear A yields completely meaningless results. No grammar, no structure, and no connection to any known language. This led to a bold conclusion. Linear A does not represent Greek, but an entirely different language, one that to this day cannot be identified as belonging to any known linguistic family. This striking case of visual similarity but linguistic disconnect has made Linear A maze with no exit, where knowledge is hidden behind a familiar-looking code that no one can unlock. The core issue that keeps Linear A undeciphered lies in a paradox that seems almost impossible to overcome. To read the script, we must know the language it represents, but to identify the language, we must first be able to read the script. There is no bilingual text like the Rosetta Stone, no long passages to analyze for context, and no clear grammatical patterns, making Linear A a closed corpus, a sealed body of data offering too few clues for decryption. What remains are only short, fragmented inscriptions, lacking the structure needed to build a comprehensive linguistic analysis. One of the greatest mysteries of Linear A is that the original language it represents remains completely unidentified. Many scholars have proposed theories. It could be Eteocraton, the indigenous language of Crete before the arrival of the Greeks. Others suggest connections to ancient Anatolian languages like Luwian, while some go even further, proposing that it is a language isolate, with no known relatives, much like modern Basque. However, all of these remain speculative, as the surviving data is far too limited for reliable academic comparison or verification. We are facing a civilization that created its own writing system, left behind hundreds of inscribed artifacts, yet not a single legend, no story, no line of philosophy that we can comprehend. Linear A is therefore not merely a linguistic puzzle, but a cultural and anthropological Rubik's Cube with no solution. Without understanding the language they once spoke, we are left only with the outer shell of their civilization, a brilliant yet silent world, one that modern humans can only observe from the outside, forever unable to step in and listen. Linear A may be the missing link to understanding the development of Western written civilizations. If successfully deciphered, it could reveal how the Minoans organized their society, performed religious rituals, and perceived the world around them. Within those symbols may lie knowledge, beliefs, laws, and value systems that existed more than 3 millennia ago, all sealed inside a locked book that no one has yet been able to open. Today, modern technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and multispectral imaging are being applied in an effort to unlock the ancient door known as Linear A. Yet despite these advancements, Linear A remains a powerful testament to the limits of human knowledge, a reminder that some mysteries lie in plain sight, yet still remain beyond our understanding. It is like a melody without sound, a letter with no sender, a map leading to a civilization we can only imagine, but never truly reach. Linear A may appear to be nothing more than silent symbols carved into clay, but within them could lie an entire world of thought, belief, and knowledge from a vanished civilization. What would happen if one day we finally deciphered this mysterious script? Could it reshape our understanding of human history? Might it reveal truths we've never even imagined? What do you think is hidden within these voiceless characters? Share your thoughts in the comments below.